So what I thought and you thought and we discussed would happen is what I see happening. Last time we spoke, there were variables everywhere. The Fed was raising rates like crazy. Prices were going up. Interest rates were going up. People were used to interest rates in the 2, 3, 4%.
Yeah.
Especially first-time home buyers are just coming in and they're getting interest rates in the 3%, and rates now are going up in big chunks. Everybody was scared.
Mm-hmm. Well, the market was certainly doing funky things then, and that's why I wanted to, kind of circle back today and talk about where we are. From my quick perspective, not much has really changed. I think the thing I would probably share is that people were expecting things to tank by now. I think people were thinking that prices would have come down by now, that this was not sustainable, that, there was a bubble. And as much as people like to use, words like that are easily relatable to something that's happened in the past, I don't see it applying this time. And like I joked about last time we were together, I was saying, you know what? And I looked into the camera, I was like, don't take our word for it.
Yeah.
Just you said, do your own research, you do your own, research into what applies to you and what you think is right. And everyone has a different, opinion on it. I get you know how much I post content. And so I get a lot of, well, you're just an agent. You're just trying to sell me something. Like, no, I'm just trying to share my opinion, kind of wrapped in 20 years of experience. And I deliver it in a way where it's either going to help you or it's not. You're going to subscribe to something like that, or you're not, because you're a doomsdayer or a naysayer or whatever it might be. And God bless you, vaya con Dios. But it is what it is with the market. And, it hasn't really budged. And what have you seen in terms of your activity as a local mortgage lender?
There's so much going in my head of what you just said that I want to touch up on. Is I think that, so when we said go do your research, the YouTube University that now exists for everyone has a lot of people that just want attention. They want likes. They want to put a content out there that people can just listen to and watch over and over again. And one of the biggest selling things is bad news. Hey, this is going to explode. This is going to be horrible. And then when you get someone that I want to say is a little more pragmatic, is a little more feet on the ground and say, okay, it's not all doomsday. It's not raining cats and dogs. We're not building an ark. Things are going to be okay. It's not that, sexy for
bombastic.
People. Right. Bombastic. Thank you, Shaggy. So what I thought and you thought and we discussed would happen is what I see happening. Last time we spoke, there were variables everywhere. The Fed was raising rates like crazy. Prices were going up. Interest rates were going up. People were used to interest rates in the 2, 3, 4%.
Yeah.
Especially first-time home buyers are just coming in and they're getting, interest rates in the 3%, and rates now are going up in big chunks. Everybody was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody remembers 2008 with the bubble, and people look at markets like California and all these places around Arizona where it's very desirable, and they're thinking that our market is the same, and it isn't. We have, and I know we're going to discuss this, we have low inventory, high demand. People want to move here from everywhere.
Let's talk
all
about
over the country, all over the world. People want to move in here. So and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but the point is there is so much legitimate demand. I'm not talking about corporations buying properties and putting them out there for rent. I'm talking about legitimate people wanting to live here, that this market is going to be, if it does start going down, one of the last, if at all.
Yeah, because you're absolutely touching on something. If we pull back the veil of clickbait, news style information, and we stop thinking that the sky is falling and we're all screwed.
Yeah.
you pull all that off. You pull off COVID. You pull off all those things that made the interest rates 2%. All of that. At the end of the day, you're still left with Florida, and Florida is always, to your point, commanded a certain amount of attention and desirability, regardless of what was happening in the market. Regardless of what was happening in the market.
Since the 20s. Hello.
Exactly, forever. And the biggest one I think that most people can resonate is with, and this is only one example, but the one that I think people will understand is people would go up north, they would make their money in big companies, they would retire, they would own their house free and clear for $500,000, $6,000, $3 million, and they lived there for 20, 30 years. They own it free and clear. And then they come over here and drop less than half of the money to live in the sunshine, to be in this beautiful weather, and to relax for the rest of their days.
Right.
That theme continues, and I think that's what's lost in all of this interest rate in the market and this and that.
But there is there's an addition to that. You're talking about people that are retiring, of course, but there's families that are now, thank you COVID, working remotely,
right,
that are saying, hey, Florida has the weather, Florida has the great taxes or lack of taxes, and it has all these wonderful benefits to being down there. Let's move our family down there. So now you have younger people moving into Florida from other places, not because they're wanting to end up and spend the rest of their wonderful, comfortable life here, but they want to start out their family here because of all the benefits.
So now you've mentioned a second one, very, very powerful group of people. To that point, which was a result or a circumstance of COVID and what we went through and the flexibility and availability to work from home, which now is very normal. It used to be kind of weird. It used to be, what do you mean? That's kind of a perk. How come he gets to do it and I don't get to do it? Now it's totally normal, which is why there's conversations, and I know you know this too, is over the concern over commercial real estate. And the fact that that's very empty. What are we going to do with commercial real estate that no one's coming back to work? And so that's now a real change. It's not still a kind of a post-COVID symptom. It's something that's now, I think, very much ingrained, and we're technologically capable of doing moving forward.
It's part of our society.
And now it's part of the society.
It's part of our society. My 16-year-old is looking at career possibilities in the future. And one of the things that he talks about is that I don't want to be locked into this area. I want to be able to be flexible. I want to be able to work anywhere as he's thinking about career choices. So the whole concept of, at least my father, which was you graduate, you get involved with a huge corporation, and you dedicate your life to that corporation. Go Chevy, go Ford, go, this or that corporation.
Gold watch at the end of 40 years.
Right. And then, walk out of there with a gold watch, so to speak. That's gone. Mm-hmm. That went from now every time I switch companies, I'll get a better deal to I just want to sit back and work at home and do my 8 hours, and I don't want to do any more. And I was watching a news that was saying that much of this new generation that's coming into work are saying, no. I don't want to dedicate my life to you, big company. I want you to give me 8 hours. I will do 8 hours and I'm out. I'm going to go enjoy this, enjoy that. So there's a big shift because I think of COVID in our society.
Yeah, and technology allows us to do that very, very easily, more and more every single day. It just becomes easier. And so as the generation that comes behind us, or after us rather, is seeing those opportunities, I don't blame them. Why would they want to sit behind a desk and wait for those it's not the model anymore.
But back to Florida, that just means more and more people want to live here. More and more people want to move here. And I'm still back to something I say all the time. There's only so much land. There's only so much land to build on. And the demand is just getting stronger and stronger. I think that last year, I don't think, but it's my opinion, that last year was very shaky because nobody knew what was happening with the economy. Nobody knew what was happening with the interest rates. There was all this word talk about, recession and this and that. I feel, this is just my opinion, I feel that people are more settled. Hey, interest rates are now between 6 and 8%, depending on, everything from the type of property you're buying to who you are financially. So that's just what it is. Less people can afford houses because interest rates are more expensive. Insurance, which is something we talked about touching base, is more expensive. Less people can afford houses. It just is what it is. Before COVID or during COVID, rates are 2-3%. Interest rates, the insurance is a little better. Anybody can afford, relatively anybody can afford a property. Now it's just less. It doesn't mean that no one is looking for properties that no one can afford. It's just less people. You have to have yourself financially more stable to afford a property.
So even with less people now looking for properties because of the affordability, which you touched on, that leads me to something I wanted to talk to you about, which is inventory. So even though there are less people that are looking to or able to afford something, then when they are able to afford something and they go out there, there's less to choose from.
Yes.
And so that makes it more difficult. Now, it'd be interesting to talk about, and we kind of already touched on it, why is it that there's less out there to choose from?
I can give you my 2 cents. I think you're going to have a much better idea. Ultimately, I believe it comes down to there's only so much land. And because inflation, because of prices going up, if you're Mr. Miss Builder and you're going to dedicate your team's time, you rather build something for $1 million, $800,000, than for $300,000 or $200,000. You're just not going to have the same return, but you're going to put forth the same effort. And so everybody's building that aspect. Now, I have seen a lot of people building more multi-units, townhouses, apartments. You go to downtown Miami, it's like skyscraper building after building, just going up in that Brickell, Miami area. Anywhere you go, people are just going up because it makes more sense financially. In Boca Raton, where I live, there's a bunch of apartment buildings that are going up like this super fast, and right away they're full.
Apartment buildings specifically for rental?
For sale.
For sale.
For sale.
Okay.
Condos, apartments. There's one on Yamato just east of 95 that they built in less than a year. It's I call it townhouses, but row houses. And it's all rented. It's before they were finishing painting. There were a bunch of lights and people living in there.
Sure.
So that's what I see they're doing.
So we have this influx of people coming in that want to continue to buy. So
yes.
The demand is there without question.
And they have the income because they're coming in from other places. They have the money because they're coming in from other places. Because, yes, and I heard some report that, Florida, crazy inflation, yes. But there's markets out there that the cost of living is more expensive.
100%.
And they're coming here with money, with buying power, being able to buy something.
From many perspectives in this country, Florida is still seen as a bargain.
Yes.
From financial perspectives. Although
yes.
we've gone up, and for many, especially, and it's obviously, if you've lived here, if you've always been in Florida and you see prices go up, you're going to say, well, everything's more expensive.
Well, that's true everywhere. I was watching a video in Colorado. And all the folks from Colorado are kicking and screaming that everyone moving in is raising prices. Right. But everybody's moving in and thinks it's a great deal. $400,000 or $500,000 for somebody who lives in California, that's nothing. For somebody who's been living in Colorado, or for somebody who's been living in Florida that's used to $200,000-$300,000, because I remember a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a decent neighborhood in the $200,000-$300,000 range not too long ago. Forget it. Not anymore. Double that. But for people moving in, it's affordable.
So what we see from my perspective, and I know you're saying that I was going to share mine, and certainly am, because I think one of the things I've certainly been talking about a lot lately is this low inventory, the lack of inventory, the lack of good homes available on the market, and the demand, as we just described, still being really high. A lot of people, and I think the stat was, because I don't want to just say a lot, the stat was 90% have a mortgage under 6%. Well, that just makes sense, because when interest rates were 2, 3, and 4,
yes,
and the husband and wife were looking at each other at the kitchen table, and we're holding a 5.5 or a 6. Hey, honey, why don't we just refinance now? So it wasn't just people buying a new home and locking that new low rate in. It was everybody making a smart financial decision about their current place in the market. So they've got this wonderful home. They look at each other, and I always use the husband and wife example, but it could be anybody, of course. And they're saying, this makes financial sense, right? Because why not lower our payment and not give it away towards insurance? So all of these people rushed, and you can speak very eloquently on this, that rush of people that were looking to refinance, not only just purchase, but refinance, how busy you guys were to do that. And so now you're left with all of these people that are holding a mortgage that are at 6% or under. Why in the world will they sell it? Why would they really sell it to go into, and off camera we had a similar conversation.
I was just going to I'm waiting for you to finish because I don't want to interrupt, but I have two thoughts on that.
Bring in your thought. But yeah, let me just finish that. Is why in the world would they want to give that up? It doesn't make sense. And so now if you've got this huge quantifiable pool of people that say, I'm not going to let go of this. There's only a couple of solutions.
I'm staying put right here.
Why in the world would I give up my 3% interest?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here, honey. Maybe we'll add that extra room, or we will put the pool in that you wanted, or whatever it is, because now we're going to stay put. Now, there are people that feel like they're caught, and then I'll let you kind of chime in with yours. There are people that feel like they're caught because they're growing families. The husband and wife bought the 2-bedroom. Now they have 2 babies. They really need a 4-bedroom. What do I do with this?
And they're still keeping the property as an investment.
Thank you very much.
And buying a second for their family.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Now they have equity, and there's a way, without getting too many details, that you can pull out equity from that property without touching your mortgage and your low interest rate, pull out equity and use it to pay off credit cards, to pay off car loans, to buy another property. And you turn that property into your investment, and it's making money, positive cash flow every month.
At a lower interest rate.
At a 3%, let's say 3% interest rate, and you're buying something, sure, your new interest rate is 6, 7, or 8%, whatever it happens to be, but that house is helping you pay this mortgage, and that interest rate is tax deductible.
Right. And now you're able to move into the next thing. And certainly there are steps you need to take, but because you still have to qualify for that one, right? Yeah. So it's not just as easy as we're saying. There's certainly qualifying
but it's a strategy.
But it's a strategy to a solution.
Yep.
So what were your examples? Because we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah. So what we were talking about is a situation that I'm in of I have a property in Miami that is, I need to figure out if I want to move into this property or I want to buy another property, move my family into it. And I was telling Eddie, I have this property that I could move into it at just a little over 3% interest rate, 3.25%, I believe it is, ish. And I can sell that and walk away with some money in my hand and then buy something else comparable in this area, which I already live in. But then that would be somewhere between the, let's say, 7% interest rate. And it would be a lot less house than this is. So, what do I do? Well, I'm not getting rid of that. It makes no sense to get rid of something greater for less interest rate to buy something lesser for more interest rate. So I'm holding on to the property. The other thing I wanted to touch on is I have 2 clients right now, and these are both clients that have very low interest rates. One client was at 3.9. We just refinanced her to a 7% interest rate. And the other client is also in the 3% range, though I don't remember exactly because we're not touching that loan. She is renting that property out, and she has taken out a HELOC to use that equity and buy a new primary residence. So here are 2 different individuals. They bought houses a couple years ago, low interest rate, let's say in the 3s. One of them is using the equity to pay down high credit card bills, to pay down high debt, and bring her monthly payment down. So very quick example, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, let's say her mortgage was $3,000, but she had another $3,000 on top of credit card debt, personal loan, etc. That's $6,000 that she has to pay.
Every month.
So now she refinanced her home. Her home is $4,000 instead of $3,000. But she doesn't have the additional $2,000 for $6,000 that she had before. So she's pocketing $2,000 that she can turn around now and take some of that or all of it and apply it towards the principal of her new mortgage. And ultimately, it makes sense. So she's using her equity to get in a better financial situation. Then we have this other lady who is using her equity, cashing out on her equity, and using that money to buy a new home. She's going to rent her current home with the low interest rate, not touch that mortgage, and buy a new home for herself. So she's got 2 homes, creating wealth, and that first home is helping her pay for the second home. So that's what I see that it's affecting the low inventory. Is here 2 people that are not going anywhere, 3, including myself. We're not putting anything on the markets. If anything, we're taking away from the market.
Which then just adds to the lack of inventory.
Exactly.
And what I want to finish with that is you just you detailed 3 very different scenarios.
Yes.
But all that had a positive solution at the end. And those positive solutions is what I like to always, kind of let my audience know, is that you don't come to those just by sitting in a room by yourself wondering what can be done. You get to those solutions by talking to somebody who does them on a regular basis.
That can offer you options.
That can help architect options based on your scenario, not his scenario, not her scenario, not what you did last week.
Yeah.
But what are your circumstances? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And let's see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
And the answer is there might be times where it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like we're trying to sell something to everybody every time. Like there's always a solution. There may not be.
There's always options. There may not be good options, but there's always options.
There's always options, but there may not be good options. Yeah, that's a great way to end it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, just to piggyback on that is, go to the professionals, talk to the Eddies, the Lewises, the people that have been in their profession of finance or real estate for a long time, that know what they're doing. This is all they do. This is their bread and butter, and say, here's my scenario. Here's my situation. What are my options? Something that brings to mind is another client I currently have. Mm-hmm. His situation is different. He doesn't own a home. He's looking to buy a home. He is a young adult in his 30s, maybe not as young as 20s, but late 20s, early 30s. And he owns his own company, and he doesn't have enough income to buy something in the current market. Great credit, has some money put away, but doesn't have the income. His solution, get a cosigner. Mom and dad are going to cosign. There's nothing wrong with that. And he's going to be able to buy a house, own his house, pay less than what he's paying in rent. Mom and dad really only step in if he doesn't pay the mortgage. And he's able to buy something. So a lot of solutions that might not have been so popular when we had 2-3% and houses were in $200,000-$300,000 are just now becoming, hey, this is an option. This is a real option. If you have somebody like that can help you, why not?
But it all started with a conversation.
It all started with a conversation.
And you had to go with theirs.
Yeah.
Louis, you've been doing this for so many years now, and I know that you're always keeping your eye on, very much like the examples you shared with us earlier, programs that might be helpful for your different clients. And one I know that you mentioned to me earlier before we sat down is the DPA one.
Correct.
Can you go into detail as to what that is, and how is that available, and if there's any others that are similar to that people should be aware of that they could take advantage of?
Yep. Do your research. Don't take my word for it. Okay. So with that disclaimer said,
yeah.
DPA stands for Down Payment Assistance Program. Mm-hmm. Now, each program is a world unto itself. What I mean is, you can have a city, a county, a state, or at the federal level, do a down payment assistance program. This means that they might be gifting you money, they might be loaning you money with specific conditions. Nothing is for free. So a city, for example, or a county might say to themselves, okay, we have this area of town that we want families to move into. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer families that fit these guidelines, this age, this income bracket, kids, no kids, dogs, cats, whatever they want, that want to move into there. We're going to give them free of charge $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 towards their closing costs. towards down payment and or closing costs. So that's an example of DPA. That's a grant. Florida has had what they call their Hometown Heroes down payment assistance program. And what it says is, if you fit these guidelines, you're a first-time home buyer, that's one of the guidelines. If you fit these guidelines, we will give you a percentage of your purchase price towards down payment, towards closing costs. In this case, it's not a grant, it's a loan at 0% interest. You can't go wrong with zero money. You have, for the term of the loan, to pay it back. If you ever sell the house, you pay the balance, but it's at 0% interest.
Is that when it's due? When you sell a house?
Yeah, or at the end of the mortgage.
Or at the end of the mortgage.
Years. Yeah. So you basically have someone loaning you money at 0% interest, saying, here's help. And I think this is a tool. This always existed, but now it's much more prevalent because prices are high, money is low. Not everyone has, as much as they need to have to finance. And these programs have become very popular. And there's pros and cons to every program. Talk to the professional you're dealing with. But it's definitely something that is a wonderful tool that's out there.
So there's always these kinds of programs available, right?
There's always programs. At the end of the day, the machine that is the lending machine in the country is always moving with the times. So when interest rates shot up, remember we talked about it, 12, 14, 16, 18% in the 80s, they came out with their own programs how to help people finance. We got down to 2, 3, 4%. I can tell you, nobody was thinking about these programs. It just, they were still there, but nobody needed them because it was so easy to get a loan. Now we're somewhere in the middle. I feel we're in the sweet spot where we should be, where you're making money from your investments. We're in that 6 to 8% range. And now you're starting to see some of these programs, some of these, cosigner options becoming more popular so people can buy things.
Now, everything you've shared with me makes sense to me, and I don't usually cringe, and I use the word cringe because if I can play devil's advocate for a moment here, because I know some of our viewers will maybe start to think this way, and I have a very specific example of why I'm bringing this up, but I've started to receive, probably over the last couple of months, more and more of these loan programs, and I won't mention who the lenders are, just because I won't, but there are some that start to smell of potential problems, like no income verification, 1099 only, just to name a couple that are just kind of popping into my head. And as a professional, I'm like, yes, there should be assistance. Yes, we should find really good programs to help the hardworking American achieve the American dream, because we do know that by and large the wealth in America for people, it comes from the home ownership. We just know that, even if they do nothing else in their lives, owning your home is just that type of vehicle. It brings wealth. And it brings generational wealth, which is, I think, even almost probably more important, right? Because then you get people stuck out of that hole, if you will. And it just hopefully continues to grow over generations. But are you seeing that? Are you concerned about those? It just does make me pause for a moment. It's like, yeah, man, everyone should have some skin in the game. I think, Do you know where I'm saying with that?
I do. You have to be careful when you approach let's talk about loans specifically, a banker or a mortgage broker, and they're trying to put you into a loan that just seems too good to be true. The reality is we are just, as an industry, so regulated which is why we're not in 2008 or nowhere near in that circumstance. We're so regulated, we're so controlled that it's hard for any one of us to do something shady. But you can you can get into the wrong program.
This is a safe space.
Yeah, of course it is.
And this is my playground. We say whatever the hell we want.
Okay.
So that shit.
it is possible to get into a program that does not benefit you into the long run, but it looks good at the moment. I'll give you an example of a program that I think is a good program that sounds shady that I've used in the past. If you own an investment property or you're buying an investment, let's say you're buying an investment property, this is only for investment properties, you can get a loan that has nothing to do with your income. You have good credit, and as long as the property earns in rent more than it's going to pay, let's say tax, PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, then you can get this loan. And this loan is based solely on the fact that you have good credit and the property will earn enough to pay for that loan. Then you can get this loan. Is it a good loan? Yes, it's a good loan, and you're not going to lose your shirt because it's an investment property. Your home is protected. This is not for primary residence,
right.
Okay? Super high interest rate, high fees. If you can avoid it, don't use the program. But if you have a professional that's guiding you and saying, look, this is a great purchase opportunity for you. This is the only loan. This is the only way you're going to be able to get it. Get it and be aware that in a year or two, you should be looking to refinancing out of that program. Many times, FHA, don't want to get into what FHA is, but FHA is a program that if you don't qualify for a conventional loan, then you can get an FHA loan, and there's certain fees attached to it, what have you. Every FHA loan I've ever done, and this is part of my bread and butter, I tell them, plan on refinancing X amount of time down the line. Before COVID, it was within a year or two when you have enough equity and your credit is better or what have you, refinance. Now with the current situation, I'm telling everybody rates will go down eventually. I don't know when that eventually is. I'm not going to say, yeah, it's going to go. Eventually, rates will settle back down, and then you should be thinking about refinancing out of your FHA. So FHA is a great example of what I'm saying. There are good programs out there
Sure.
that you use it with the idea of a game plan, and then you come out of it.
You're not sitting on that loan forever. There's a strategy behind going into the home purchase with this.
And you must have a strategy. Whatever it is, you must have a strategy before you buy, if you're smart. Yeah.
Let's hope everyone is.
Or they're getting good guidance.
We've talked about a lot of challenges in the real estate space, and one that is incredibly topical right now. And I think I just don't. I say it's incredibly topical only because I keep thinking about it. And yes, it's spoken about, but I don't know that it's spoken about enough, because I think more and more it's having a greater impact on people's ability to buy a home, and it has nothing to do with interest rates or the purchase price, and that is homeowners insurance. We've seen in the headlines, and it's true, it's not just a headline, that there are some major insurance carriers that have pulled out of Florida altogether.
2 so far that I know of, and I think there's some more coming.
There's more coming. Okay, great. So you'll be able to speak on that, and I want to really I want to talk about what that means for somebody looking to buy a home, which before it used to be just kind of the silent partner that just kind of came along with your home purchase, right?
Yeah.
You bought the house, so I came to you. You said, okay, great. You said, Eddie, who are you going to use for your insurance? Have you paid your policy? Yeah, no problem. Talk to a handful of people, get a quote, choose the one you want, pay the policy. Here it is. I've paid. Good. You're good. You're clear to close. We're ready to go.
Right.
But now there needs to be a lot more thought as to, ahead of time. Although any good real estate agent, mortgage broker, lender is going to sit down with you and really go over what your costs are going to be, not only as you originate the loan, but in terms of your ongoing expenses, expected escrows into your for your mortgage. But now I think it requires a little bit of a deeper thought. And a lot of it has to do, of course, with the expenses, the rise in the expense.
Yes.
Because now if there's less choice, just like in any dynamic market, if there's less competition, prices may become a little bit more expensive, right? When there's more competition, then people start to compete over money, and you have more choice. Yeah. But now we have less choice, and we have less choice because of it's Florida. There's certainly been some substantial claims with regard to, yes, there's a portion there that's faulty and fraudulent, but there's also quite a bit that's the result of Mother Nature here in Florida. It's just what we have here. So what kind of conversations are you having, and what potential solutions?
I try very hard to stay in my lane. My lane is mortgages and numbers, getting you not just getting you the money you think you need to buy, but getting you the best possible program. That's my lane.
My lane is to find you the house, make
Correct.
sure you're happy with it, help you negotiate the right terms and the right price, and execute a contract so you can buy it.
And I'll take that a step further, because you're underestimated. And by you, I mean you yourself, but your industry. It's not just help you find a house. Is you may think you want a house in this area, or in this circumstance, or maybe it's a single family, or maybe it's a condo or a townhouse. But by talking to someone like yourself with experience and professional that will guide people, you will also say, look, this area, I know you mentioned this area, but maybe you should consider this area. And I know because I have this conversation. I know you're saying you want a condo, but let's look at the numbers. A townhouse might be a better fit for you. So I think that
And we're not talking about steering, of course, because that's a violation.
No, not at all. But the reality is that, for example, just to make sure we're clear, people come to us and this is not their lane. They're not familiar with all the knowledge you have of the market, with all the knowledge I have in financing. So many times people have come to many times and said, I want a condominium. Mm-hmm. And I have said, no, you think you want a condominium because you don't know what it takes to buy a townhouse and you don't know what it takes to buy a house. In a condominium, you might have to put 25% down. Sure, it's a lower amount. Let's say the condo is $300, a house would be $500. You're putting 25% down on that condo, but you might be able to put 3% down on a house. And at the end of the day, you might be happier with a house. And although I don't tell them you must buy the house, I tell them consider the options as the numbers stand. Mm-hmm. And you yourself say, consider the options, this neighborhood versus that neighborhood, this type of property versus that type of property.
How long are you going to hold it? What are you going to be doing
what's
for it? What's your
what
game plan?
What is the game plan?
Again, it goes back to the same
What
thing.
is the game plan? Are you going to be here for 2 years? Or are your kids going into school and you want a small, an elementary and a middle school, but you don't care so much about the high school? What is the game plan?
Yeah. Which is why I like this topic about the homeowner's insurance is because it kind of sits right in the middle between you and I. It's not directly architected or handled by you, and it certainly isn't by me either. So, but it is something that we talk about that affects us.
So I have what I consider a very realistic point of view on the insurance issue. Our government in Florida must figure out something to do with insurance and get it under control as an industry. Now, I don't think that it's a 1 year fix or 2 year fix. I'm not pointing fingers and saying this governor or that governor or this party or that party. I'm saying government as a whole must figure out how to deal with this problem in the state of insurance. Until then, insurance is going to continue to go up. It is going to continue to be high, and you must budget for this. With that said, yes, you can get a little more coverage here, a little less coverage there. You can try and find a concrete built house and not a wood built house, or put this kind of roof or shutters or impact doors and windows. But at the end of the day, insurance is high. It's going to continue to go high, to get higher until somebody steps in and fixes the issues and fixes the problems. And the storms is not something that they're going to fix. But how we deal with the claims, how that is controlled and regulated, that's something that they can do.
Yeah, some of the more specifics, tactics, if you will, that some of my insurance partners have have shared with me recently, and have to do. And I actually, you shared a story earlier, and I'll share a personal one too. We needed to get our roof done as well. Our roof was it was an asphalt shingle roof. Our home was built in the early 90s. Early 90s? Yeah. Early 90s. And it was an asphalt shingle roof. The roof was not leaking. It was still sound and in good shape. But when the renewal for the insurance came back up, so now this is not me buying a house, right? This is me, my established home.
Right.
My established home. And so one of these tightenings that's happening in the insurance industry is they're becoming, and again, one of my insurance partners made me aware of this, is that I believe it used to be now, if there isn't at least 3 years of useful life on the roof now.
Right.
It used to be 2, I believe.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm remembering it properly.
Yeah.
So of course now there's more and more roofs that are not going to qualify if they don't like the look of that, and some of that's subjective. Some of that's subjective. So, but in our experience, we had to get the new roof. Now we're hoping to be able to hold on to it for a little bit longer. But as quotes came in for the handful of carriers that would cover our roof under our home under this condition of the age of the roof, it was exorbitantly expensive.
Yep.
Where it's just like, it doesn't make sense. So then you're kind of forced into getting a new roof. And certainly it went down 75%, the premium did, so now it's of course very manageable. And now we've got a nice new roof and we're proud of it.
Yeah.
But it's an expense that you have to think about.
Yes.
And you have to think about it faster and sooner than I think you used to before.
And I think we could do a whole segment on what I'm going to mention now. And there's a gentleman that I can talk to see if he'll come in and talk if you want.
Yep.
But I'm president of the board in my condo association. And we're dealing with putting new roofs on our condominium. And what the gentleman that handles our insurance said to us, he said, look, you still have 3-4 years usable, but understand that your insurance is going up. And if you redo, let's say you put new roofs on right now in your condominiums, it's not necessarily going to bring down your insurance. What is going to happen is you're going to be available for more companies to offer you insurance.
That's a great way to put it.
So
yeah.
It's not, let's say that there's 100 companies out there, which there isn't, but let's just say there's 100. Right now, there's only 3 or 4 companies that are willing to insure us, which of course that means they can offer, demand high prices.
Supply and demand.
Now we'll be able to go back to 100 companies and we have more options to go with. So it's that too. It's not just how expensive. It's keeping you within that. I'm out there marketable to other insurance companies.
So final analysis, when you're going to buy a house, there's a lot of things to consider.
Yes.
Especially now.
Yes.
And the help of a competent professional is just going to go a long way.
Yes. And if you're in California, you have crazy prices and forest fires. Here, it's insurance. And everywhere you go, it's something that you have to deal with because you're moving into that area, and that area has pros and cons.
Yeah.
For us, it's insurance.
It's always like that.
It's insurance. And until somebody gets a hold and fixes it, let's say, it's going to continue to be insurance.
I'm going to hold you to a hot take here, just kind of real quick. Where do you think the market's going?
Up. I think that prices will continue to go up, albeit at a slower pace. But demand is not slacking. There are people that can afford the 6 to 8% interest rate. I believe interest rates will still go up, creep up a little bit, not like they have been, but until the Fed doesn't feel confident that it's got the economy under control, it will raise rates. I think that insurance will go up. And I think that demand will still be low, and there will still be a lot of people out there vying for homes because...
Do you think the demand will still be low or high, you mean?
I think demand will still be high.
High, yep. Demand will be high,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't see demand. I don't see any reason why demand would go down ever unless, we're all underwater in 100 years. But other than that, demand's going to continue to go up. There's only so much land to go around. And
specifically here for us, it's still Florida.
And it's Florida. At the end of the day, with the tax breaks that we have, with the weather, with all the things that Florida has to offer, it's Florida. It's Florida.
Amigo, thanks for always coming in, buddy.
Thank you, brother.
This is great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.